Thanks, Matt. I've been suspended as chair of Hampstead and Kilburn CLP because I allowed the constituency to decide what it should discuss rather than David Evans. But I would point out that not all of the charge sheets being sent round are as short as Howard suggested. Mine stretches to 15 pages. And people need to take on board that they are throwing in the anti-Semitism stuff at the same time as the attack on democracy and what we can discuss. If people haven't picked it up, the announcement that the Tower Hamlets led parties are not allowed to discuss the charity bike ride for Palestine, for instance, shows that overlap and shows that we need to address both, not just what's happening on democracy. I'm concerned that we need to pull this together into a coherent fight back. We've got people saying the fight is not till next year's conference. We've got people putting all the eggs into the basket of legal action. I'm not against legal action, but actually legal action comes down to one person at a time being absolved or whatever let back in. We need a coherent fight back that brings together what's happening on the NEC, where we've got the trade unionists and the CLP reps working together on a level that hasn't been seen for an awful long time. We have all those CLPs passing resolutions rather than follow David Evans' rules. And we have that vast number of secretaries and chairs writing in. But that needs to be brought together into a political fight back involving them all. And it's not just, of course, it's all terrible. Of course, it's an attack on party democracy, but we need a politically coherent fight back against that. And I think the NEC 14 or whatever it is are best placed to do that. But it does need them to, take it out of the NEC meetings to bring together that movement. So we do resist what's happening to party democracy.
Thanks very much, Pete. And Pete did keep to 3 minutes or so, which has been requested in the chat. So if people could do that, it would be very welcome. Okay, I'll now invite Terry Conway. Terry, you're next.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks to Nadia and Howard for kicking off what I think is this important discussion. First of all, I wanted to reiterate what Pete said about the importance of the NEC 14. As a member of Unite and a member of the LRC, I've been frustrated about the way too many sections of the left think that the left and the CLPs and the left and the trade unions should go down separate paths. I've heard stories of even after NEC members, after NEC meetings, the left in those two categories sitting at different tables in the pub. So it was very inspiring to see a united left operating at the NEC away day. But I think it is absolutely right that in the context of this pandemic, in the context of the fact that we were not allowed to have a conference that meant anything this year, when other parts of the labour movement have managed to have democratic decision-making meetings, members are feeling quite isolated. So I think that's important. I think we also need to take on board the ridiculous nature of the democratic shutdown. The fact that Bath Labour Party have been banned from giving a donation from their funds to food banks throughout the Southwest, the attacks on solidarity with food poverty in our communities has been part of the attack. I think we need model resolutions which are circulated by the NEC 14 that take up these political issues. And we need to challenge the fact that one of David Evans' latest things moves from discussion on anti-Semitism to instrumentalize all anti-racism, all anti-sexism, and suggest that they're going to use the same methodology. we have to be going on the offensive on these questions, and that means we need spaces for coherent strategy that brings together campaigners at the grassroots with those of you that we've elected to represent us. I think we can win this battle, but that needs to involve all of us in the discussion about how to do so. Thank you, comrades.
Thanks, Terry. And I saw the comment about Bath Labour Party in the chat as well, which does seem bureaucracies take all sorts of strange decisions, but that does seem a particularly bizarre ruling, which should be challenged. Okay, I've got Ludi Simpson next.
Just unmuting myself, thanks very much. I just wanted to support things that have been said and to emphasise and exemplify them on the need for coordination. I think that those who have gone first are always particularly heroic and brave, put themselves in the firing line, but there's a real need to do this well, and therefore in a coordinated way. And it is the NEC left it, but it's also, as I think Matt referred to, those who went through the torturous process of producing an NEC left in the first place that must get together. And if they can't, then those that can must find a way around that. But then there's new groupings as well, isn't there? There's all the the chairs and sexes finalists letter who wouldn't all feel themselves as part of those other groupings. So they need to be thinking about bringing those in. I mean, Shipley Branch, who earlier this week passed a motion of no confidence on these issues in Starmer and Evans, but the work to make that happen in a way that so far means nobody's been suspended was invigorating and useful. But it is that coordination that's needed. Maybe that's why there's at least 3 of us from the branch at this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got Harry Stannard, please.
Morning, comrades. Thanks, Matt. Just very briefly then, I certainly agree with Terry Conway's suggestion about model resolutions. In Leicester, where Leicester West passed a resolution calling for the restoration of the whip to Jeremy Corbyn, but where Leicester South lost such a motion, the clear difference there was activity on the ground, careful preparation, and working out precisely what terms the resolution should use and so on. And even though we were able to get our resolution through at Leicester West, which is Liz Kendall's seat, and where Liz Kendall was the only person who spoke against that proposition, the fact is that there's been a big drawback by lots of comrades from activity. There's a lot of confusion about precisely how we go forward at the moment or what we can possibly do. We mustn't lose, we mustn't, keep on going over how shocking the activities of the Labour bureaucracy at headquarters is. The issue now is how we retain the membership, and especially that part of the membership which is supposed to resign. That's what they're supposed to do, and they're supposed to be inactive, they're supposed to be frightened. That's what this is designed for. At the moment, people are disgusted, but that's not going to turn into something positive unless we do so. So model resolutions is fine, but I want to know how it is we work with the National Executive Committee members, Howard and the NEC 14 or however many they were who walked out that day. How are we going to work more constructively, closely and precisely together with the movement within the constituencies, which is still there in favour of the policies that we fought the last 2 elections on? this is what is in Starmer's and Evans' hair. This is what they're worried about, and this is what they're designed to push from them. I think we're still in the situation, we're right in the middle of this battle. It's not over yet, and some of you will have received notice today by email that David Evans has pulled out of the Labour grassroots Zoom tomorrow, which he had previously agreed to take part in. Now that means that they cannot involve themselves in political discussions. They don't have any policy response other than we're not going to be prepared to fight for the manifesto that the party fought for last December. So people are drawing back. Many people, where they haven't resigned from the Labour Party, have resigned their positions. The largest branch, for example, in my constituency, no longer has a secretary. The constituency no longer has a secretary. Right? All of these are occurring because people are concerned about how precisely they go forward. And I know a lot of comrades in the LRC also attend the Labour grassroots meetings, and I think that's a very important thing because it shows where you get hundreds of people like that regularly coming together on Zoom. It really shows that there's potential there, and that many of the traditional organisations of the left are too tangential to it, and we've got to come in and think about how we build this precisely. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. Okay, I'd say I don't know if it's because we're not spotting it. It seems to be a bit of a male-dominated meeting so far. If there are women comrades who haven't indicated or have indicated we haven't seen, please indicate again. Matthew, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Right. Hi, comrades. No, I think this is obviously, as people have said, it's an important point, but I think that, Starmer and Evans do have a politics. The politics they actually have is of supporting Johnson, and that's what Starmer has done. He's effectively sees himself. He effectively sees himself as being, the backing of a national government, and that's what he's done. Throughout the whole pandemic and so on, and through every major piece, he supported the Johnson government, which is, the most reactionary government in British history. And that's the politics. And the background to that, of course, is you appoint Evans, a man who is on record of being against virtually every democratic function of the Labour Party, to clear out the left and to make sure that the Labour Party is entirely controlled, and the left can no longer possibly take control, which is what they want to prevent. This is clear. Actually, goes back to the whole thing, the chicken coup in 2016. The right clearly were not prepared to tolerate Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party, and they're still not. And this is the point now: is that they're in control. They want to make sure that never happens again, and that's what they're doing. So what we're seeing here is it's a thoroughgoing thing. It's not, there's they're going to go through and make sure that there's no discussion or debate in CLPs that is not on the lines that they want. That there's no discussion at conference, obviously, and they're just going to go the whole thing. So the problem being is what this actually is, in reality, is the unwinding of the whole damn thing. It's actually a split, really, because it's either the question the left, which faces the left really is how does it organise under conditions in which the right, which controls the central machine, will deny all of the mechanisms that have previously been used, resolutions or conference or CLPs or all that sort of stuff. And the key question, as comrades have said, people are drawing back. In Scotland it's even worse. You here, of course, we didn't really have. We had a bit of a surge for Corbyn, but not hugely so. And the Labour Party here has always been pretty right wing, is now getting even worse. And of course, all the people, all the people who came in are either not active or they're leaving. And this is the problem the left has got, is to say, okay, how can you hold the left together, and what is the project? Because you know, as I say, you're now going to be denied, you know, the mechanisms that have previously existed, because the party is going to shut them down. You know, once you have a position in which you have a neoliberal, you know, a neoliberal organisation under Starmer, which, as I say, is there to support Johnson, you know, it doesn't have a use for a left, and I actually can't allow a left. So therefore, okay, what is the left going to do now? And this is the real question that confronts us. And I think the key really is the left needs to start organising itself. You know, however, and in terms of sort of trying to hold people together and look at it and say, right, okay, well, this thing is actually going to move into different bits, because, you know, they're going to deny us what has previously existed.
Thanks very much, Matthew. And I've just seen in the chat a question directed at me from George Binet. I saw the comments about the Hackney walk, or whatever it's called, earlier. Excellent idea. And I think the idea of doing some physical protests around, perhaps around NEC meetings, is one that should be explored. I think that's a good suggestion we should be thinking about. Okay, I'll move on to, so yeah, follow that up, George. Alison McGarry. Alison, if you're there, please.
Myself. Morning, comrades. I hadn't planned to comment, but it's a dearth of sisters today. So a couple of things. One, I'm not as pessimistic. I think all of the points the comrades have made about putting pressure on, you know, the NEC reps to deliver, about how do we build a united, politically clear, united front to work together in the party, are absolutely paramount. And I think there is that key role for the NEC, for the reps and the trade union reps from that team. But what has happened in our party, and obviously we're Jeremy Corbyn's party, so it is different for us, is that it's actually galvanised and re-energised many of our comrades who were, and especially newer comrades who were talking about leaving the party, had enough, and they've come back to fight. There's a real anger. There's a real energy, there's a real audaciousness of we're not going anywhere. Now, obviously, that is short-term dynamic response, and it won't last unless we organise around that. And we really have to look to that NEC team and the left trade union leaders, because I was involved for many sad hours with the CLGA slate setting, and it was, I mean, not just tedious and a waste of time, but it was absolutely bloodletting by different factions, and particularly by some of the larger organisations that were completely bullying. In the end, we did get that team of candidates, although there were still problems, and I think Anne Henderson did not get elected because of sectarian differences, but I'm not going to go into that. That's being negative. But that's why that NEC team and trade union leaders have to come together. And I think the question about physical action, the comrades have begun to address. There's also the issue, I think, of calling a special conference. You're not going to call conferences. You're not going to call any form of meeting, which would involve not just party members, not just unions, but also all reaching out to mutual aid organisations, to housing. All of our, not all, many of our active members in Islington North are the bedrock of mutual aid, of housing campaigns, of school governors, of school campaigns, of unions. That's the core of their work. And to bring organisations like that, comrades like that together, I think is paramount. And that's not necessarily, hopefully that's a bridge into the party to reform, but that's also about keeping the left movement going forward and organised and putting, it's a pressure tactic, maintaining the pressure. And just one more thing, I mean, because for me, there's a whole discussion to be had about why we lost and why we were defeated. But for me, there were two issues that stand out. One is the lack of engagement directly, I would say, from some of the leadership team with the rank and file, with the community organisations, with the unions that left a gap. And the other was the complete lack of education within the party and within the movement. And again, that's an opportunity for us at the minute to start to use educational tools and to raise not just the battles in the past, or the losses of the past, but how do we forge a campaign that's going to go forward? And all of this is easy to say, bloody difficult to actually do. And particularly while the left are still so fragmented with people fighting their own corners. A conference next year is far too late. This is about, I would say, the next 3 to 6 months is putting actions into place. Yeah, so I think that's, I'm moving house on Monday, so I'm a bit preoccupied, comrades, but there's my thoughts for now. Anyway, thanks.
Thanks very much, Alison. I've got Adrienne Davis, please.
Hi. Sorry I was late to the meeting, so if I go over old ground that somebody said, I apologise. I agree with a lot of what Alison said. I'm feeling a sense of urgency. The first clampdown on free speech was way back in June, when we were told not to talk about the Panorama settlement. We've gone on and on and on, and the clampdowns have increased. Jeremy's been suspended since the end of October. I'm worried with Christmas coming that it now becomes almost a long-term thing, and the clampdown on free speech suddenly becomes something that people, they can't actually remember when there wasn't a clampdown on free speech, because we haven't had meetings and the restrictions on meetings have been such. So I feel a desperate sense of urgency. And I think the only people that can bring us together are the trade unions. I run 2 big Facebook groups, and I'm just saying to the members, what are you going to do? And I've written to everybody, I've told Evans exactly what I think of him. And they just put likes on the posts. And I think people are feeling intimidated. The only people that can speak out fully are trade unions, because we are all hampered within our Labour Party membership. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I've got Dan Robert. Please, Dan.
Yeah. Just wanted to say that I'm sorry, it's my first ever meeting with the LRC. So yeah, thanks for Steve for inviting me. Enjoyed the discussion, but I just wanted to sort of make a point really to see if anybody thought that. I know as a movement we can sort of walk and chew gum at the same time, but is there a concern that perhaps in the middle of a pandemic we're putting too much focus on internal Labour Party matters? I mean, that would be my previous criticism of Momentum, who were massively important as a young person in sort of like my political education, that perhaps at time there was too much of a focus on internal fighting, and that at a time where we can really be building a movement. I mean, people in Hereford at the minute, where near me in Worcester, Bulmer's looking to sort of do sack and sign contracts, and lots of examples of that sort of thing going around. If we spend too much time sort of having a scrap in a bit of a civil war in such a desperate time for people, we're going to lose out on a lot of people sort of coming into the movement. So that would be my point really. And also that if you look how the far right are working around the world, that they are picking up some of these people that are angry at the state of affairs. They're angry at the way, obviously, what the recovery is going to look like post-COVID. And if we don't work as socialists to sort of bring them into our movement, then sadly some of them will shift towards the far right. So that's just my point really.
Very much, Dan, and yeah, it raises an important point of how do we fight for party democracy and our principles within the party, but without appearing to the people we need to try and organise and work with, that we're simply interested in internal matters when there are huge issues facing the class out there. Okay, thanks very much, Dan. I've got Ian Malcolm Walker next. Ian.
Hello. Right. I want to look a little bit further in the future, but not in the sense of kicking the ball into long grass. Thing is, I think we need to start now working for that will come to fruition towards the tail of next year. I think we need to be quite clear. Because there was no conference last year, Evans has not yet been confirmed as General Secretary. We need to build a head of steam to make sure that Conference 2021 does not confirm Evans as our General Secretary. Similarly, we need to take to that conference a motion highly critical at least, if not motion of no confidence, on Starmer, based on the statement of the NEC 14 and the way the thing was mishandled. We need to call urgently for the full publication of the leaked report. And we also need to, and this is, well, I certainly think we ought to try and get some advice if there's any way we can challenge or reverse the payouts that were made to those traitors that call themselves whistleblowers that weren't. I'm done.
Thanks very much, Ian, and very brief. Thanks very much for that. Okay, I think several comrades have made the point about needing practical. It's all very well us having meetings like this, but we need practical suggestions. I think and we'll go through the chats to bring those together. But suggestions about protest outside Labour Party headquarters, the idea of planning for conference. I think one of the things we do need. What practically should we focus on in terms of party democratisation that we can take as practical measures to the conference next year. Austin, yeah, I've seen you in the chat. Yes, okay, Austin, yeah, I did call you in, and you weren't around at the time. But I can take you now.
Yeah, sorry, the mute button was jammed. If anybody can hear me,
we can hear you. Yes,
yeah, that's good. Yeah, everything was jammed on my PC, so sorry about that. Yeah, I'll just very brief. I know legal action was mentioned. Now, this was applied in PCS back in 2002. When Mark Sawatka's General Secretary election wasn't recognised by Barry Roomspot on the right wing, and how he used the union machinery to block everything. We had to take them to court, costing us £100,000, but we won the case. The reality is we have a similar part in the Labour Party because it's not just Keir Starmer, the leader, it's the corruption of the Labour Party HQ, the full-time officers in there. They can actually vote in meetings as well, which is disgraceful, and actually stitch up. And, to use the expression, cheat. So we have got a massive problem in terms of the Labour Party bureaucracy. Also, they're not very professional in understanding equality legislation, because I put 7 complaints in to Labour Party HQ against members of serious acts of ableism. That's not a joke. I'm discussing this Graham Bash outside the meeting at the moment, but it is a serious issue. It's absolutely outrageous, and they haven't suspended any of them at all. Just a gentle slap on the wrist, just the 3 of them. So I'm saying that there's a case here also for hypocrisy and double standards. I've enclosed the evidence and everything else. So it's the root and branch corruption of the Labour Party HQ we're up against, not just Keir Starmer. Because otherwise, if we had a fair Labour Party HQ who followed the rules and regulations, just like every trade union bureaucracy does, Keir Starmer wouldn't be able to get away with the blue murder he's committing now.